Who, JT, is your second pick, third overall in the 2024 Titans pressure draft?
My second one here, and the third one overall.
No, hang on. I need you to say this with a straight face.
Yeah,
I just want to see
I'm
it.
about to.
Okay.
The wide receiver on this team that is under the most pressure this offseason is the training camp darling himself, Kyle Phillips.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, and you think this as well, and you told me this earlier today, that there is apparently no chance that this man now makes the roster.
This is a gross misquoting. I said no such thing.
Okay. Here's why I think Kyle Phillips is under the most pressure out of all these guys. It's because he's looking outside of his spot now when he really didn't deserve to have that in the first place, in my opinion. This is a guy that I think, yes, has the injury history to have a lot of question marks about him. However, if you look at the guys that they have brought in and drafted, Jaquan Jackson, they still have Akirus Jackson on the roster, Colton Dow, these guys, they also have suffered a lot from injury, the injury bug the past season and a half, 2 seasons here. Kyle Phillips, for better or for worse, out of those kind of guys, have been kind of a little bit more dependable for him and this offense the past couple of seasons, or past 2 seasons. When he's healthy, he has been shown to be a playmaker. You go back into that Miami game where Will Levis was driving down the field. Kyle Phillips is a huge reason that the Titans were able to come back in that game. And so now you look at Kyle Phillips, who has been with this team and has really fought to actually make an impact on this team, now looking down the barrel of a team that has Tyler Boyd on it now, who is going to play that slot position for this team and be the starter. You look at Jaquan Jackson, who basically has already usurped him in the return game. So where does that leave him? Like you said, on the outside. And so I think that, with how this team may carry their wide receivers, because I think there's a notion that this team with Brian Callahan now might carry 7 or 8 receivers. I went back and looked at the Cincinnati Bengals roster at the beginning of the season last year and the year before that. They actually only carried 6 to start the season. This is actually
really
very surprising to me. I thought too, because I think of all the names that are around there: Charlie Jones, Andre Josephus, Trenton Irwin, Trent Taylor. Like all these backup guys behind Tyler.
Were some of those guys not on the roster to begin?
They were not on the roster in a year or two there. So with that being said, there's really, I don't think that many spots outside of the core 5, and then you have to assume that Jaquan Jackson is going to make the roster, which to me says that Kyle Phillips has to.
I think the top 6 are in stone. Don't you?
I mean,
Ridley, Hopkins, Boyd, Burks are all obviously making the roster. Again, assuming Burks is still on the team, but if he is, which we think he is, they're making the roster. NWI is making this roster. Jaquan Jackson is making this roster. I don't see any world in which those 6 guys are not on this roster. And so I think it's a fight for the 7th spot.
For the 7th spot, if they keep one there. If they keep a 7th spot, which is why I think that Kyle Phillips has the most pressure and the most to gain or lose this offseason and through training camp.
So I think that's a decent argument on your part, much better than MPF, but I'm still going to try to dismantle it here. You say there at the end he has the most to gain or lose. Does he have much to lose? Like, let's go back to World War II, right? Like the Axis powers. During 1940, 1941, the heart of the war. How much pressure were they under to lead? A lot of pressure, right? Super under pressure. By 1943, how much pressure were the Axis powers under? None. You know why? Because they lost the war, man. And I think Kyle Phillips, how much pressure that's my question. How much pressure can you really be? The battle of pressure when you've already lost the war. And with Tyler Boyd on this roster, listen, anybody that knows me and knows my coverage of this team knows that I have been arguably irresponsibly high on Kyle Phillips the past 2 years. I mean, he is the training camp practice warrior. He is mesmerizing when you watch him on the practice field. That being said, I like to deal in reality, man. That's my primary focus. And if I'm being honest, with Tyler Boyd around, are we sure he's on the roster in a couple months? Now, I did not text you he's for sure not on the roster, but as I just pointed out, I think the top 6 guys are set. And now that you say that they only, in Cincinnati, they've been keeping 6 every year. I'm starting to entrench myself even more into the, I don't know if he's making the roster, man. It's like Kyle Phillips, he's not contributing on special teams. He's not versatile in his deployment. He's a slot only guy. He's not consistently available. Not necessarily his fault, but that's just the reality of it. Why would you keep 2 slot only guys on this roster in Tyler Boyd and Kyle Phillips? I don't think they're doing it. And so I don't know if you can say he's under pressure if it's Jover. It's never been more over for Kyle Phillips right now than it has been in the past, I'm afraid.
It's hard for me to see you elevate an NWI above a Kyle Phillips when they were realistically in the same situation. What does Kyle Phillips have to lose? He's been on the roster for 2 years. He has a roster spot to lose.
Do you know what NWI has done the past 2 years? Score multiple touchdowns. You know what Kyle Phillips has never done in the NFL? Find the end zone. Not once.
Can we attribute that to Kyle Phillips, or can we attribute that to the offensive coordination and deployment of Kyle Phillips?
Well, it's partially that, and it's partially because the other half the time he's not available to be out there. So, listen, I love Kyle Phillips, and I would like to be wrong about this, but I don't know if he's under that much pressure. That's all I'm saying. I don't know.
Considering that, going into 3 months ago, before Tyler Boyd is on this roster, before they draft anybody, Kyle Phillips is reasonably still saying, hey, man, this year might be different. Like, Kyle Phillips may finally carve himself out a role. And now to say that he can't even look to fight and feel the pressure to fight for a spot, and just kind of be saying that Kyle Phillips is done. He's in the water. It's over. And it's May 23rd, I think is pretty insane to say.
Okay. All right. Well, we can move on to my, I don't disagree with you as much on that one as I do with the MPF. I think there's some validity to that one, but I find it interesting that we're starting this draft and the most pressure for this season are 2 guys we're not even sure are going to be starters, let alone on the roster for you. So I think that's interesting.